Hello, everyone. Jess Stainbrook here with the Invisible Disabilities Association for the Love Ideas Summit. And I've got a great guest with us today, Omar Harris. Hello, Omar. How are you doing?
How you doing, everyone? How you doing,
Omar is a best-selling author. He's located in Charlotte, born in Pittsburgh, so we got some commonality there. He's been a global consultant. He actually just wrote the book, A Servant Leader's Manifesto, as well as a bunch of other servant leadership books. So I don't know, maybe Omar, you can give me a little bit of your background so people get to know who you are here.
Definitely happy to do so. And Jess, once again, thank you so much for having me at this amazing summit. I'm really happy to contribute and to connect with everyone watching and watching around the world on this particular platform. So once again, Omar Harris, just a guy from Pittsburgh who worked 20 years in the pharmaceutical industry all around the world, had the opportunity to work in the US, Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. And what I saw in my journeys really led to me writing a couple of books, Leaderboard, the DNA of High Performance Teams, and most recently, the Servant Leader's Manifesto, and to really find my own life purpose, which is really around helping people live much more engaging lives through work, because we spend over half our lives working. It's a shame that work is such a drag for so many people nowadays. I mean, and this is really where I want to help people achieve their best lives, achieve their life's purpose as well through their work, but not suffering along the way. So I think it's really important that you can have a successful career, you can live your best life and not have to have your energy drained and not have a good experience with something you spend so much time at your life doing. So I think that's really something I'm very passionate about, and helping eradicate toxic leadership and toxic leadership behaviors and practices from organizations, whether that be businesses, corporations, any type of organization. I think there's no space for toxic leadership anymore, and it's time for us to evolve.
Well, let me actually take a step back, because, people don't just get servant leadership skills, right? Somebody had to influence you. There was a path. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I had the great benefit early in my career, my professional career in pharmaceutical industry, to work for leaders who were either positive psychology stalwarts, people who believed in the principle that of finding what's right with people, not what's wrong with people, which is your entry point into servant leadership. And then also work for a group of leaders, senior leaders, who really were focused on getting the most out of their people, treating people the right way. Really, they were oriented towards us in terms of supporting us and helping us develop ourselves and also achieve the mission as well. So I learned kind of early on in my career that it's not a trade-off between the outcomes you're trying to achieve and how you lead your people. They can be consistent. Basically, you can be oriented towards people and still achieve your overall goals, financial, whatever it is you're trying to achieve. It's not an or proposition, it's an and proposition.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like the good to great level 5 that Jim Collins talks about, right?
Exactly.
I mean, level 4 is his, hey, it's all about me. And level 5 is it's all about everybody else and how, to raise it up at that level.
Exactly. And interesting point you bring up, because this is not a new idea. I mean, servant leadership is an old idea. Robert Greenleaf coined the term in 1965. Peter Drucker talked about it. Kim Blanchard talked about it in the 90s. And John C. Maxwell's talked about. I mean, it's not a new idea, but it is an idea whose time has come. So I think that anytime before now, talking about servant leadership, it wasn't really going to be implemented simply because of the demographics and the nature of business, which was still very much kind of command and control, top down. But we're now in the age of collaboration. We're in the age of teams. We're in the age of technology. And, right now you have, for the first time, different generation boomers working together with, Gen Zers. You have different ethnicities working together. You have more females, more diversity in the workplace. And you can't lead a diverse group of people with the same principles that we led maybe in the 40s or 30s, when the group of workers was more homogenous. You have to evolve your leadership practices. And this is where servant leadership, and old ideas, time has come now, because what works with diverse groups of people is individualization. Seeing each individual person, understanding each individual story, connecting with each one, and then working with the whole to achieve whatever outcomes you're trying to get to.
So how do you see that? I mean, obviously, with today, I mean, 2020 been a crazy year.
Yeah.
What, how do those interactions I mean, I know like Simon Sinek, talks about the value of that, of the why, right? And usually that why immediately leads to a trust factor. How do we engage at that level today in the way that business is going?
Well, I think that it's actually more necessary now than ever before, because what I'm seeing is that you have two types of leaders. You have the leader who was a micromanager in the office space, who's trying to micromanage in the virtual world and basically making their people's lives miserable. We have people who are on Zoom calls for 10 hours a day because it's very difficult. Meetings were never productive, and now they're spending your entire day on meetings to try to get work done. And it's just it's just really driving people crazy. And the manager's trying to micromanage through Zoom meetings. And it's really not, it's a tragedy for people who are trying to do work. Then you have those who are more people oriented prior to COVID hitting, and they're still people oriented. They're looking at the Zoom camera and they're not just talking to their team, they're looking at people. They're seeing what's going on in the background. And that's either before or after those calls, they're checking in with the people. Hey, John, how are you doing? Hey, Susan, I noticed that, you have a lot of distractions in the back. I want to understand what's going on with you in your home life. How can I help? How can I help and support you? Are these times not working? What times do you have? Are your kids having exams? Really working to understand what's going on around the employee so they can bring their best self to those Zoom calls and not just be on there halfway thinking about the call and halfway thinking about whatever's going on around them. And I think that that's really the differential we're seeing, is that the personalization of leadership works no matter whether I'm in the same space with you, or if we're working virtually or around the world. It doesn't really matter. I had an employee when I worked in the Middle East who was based in Egypt, and he came to Turkey. I was living in Istanbul. We came to Turkey 1 week out of the month, but we did great work together because, once again, the servant leader gives you the trust right from the beginning. You trust is a given. It's not something that has to be earned. And then my job is to support you. If you don't if you don't do your part, then we have a conversation and feedback and all that type of stuff. But I think that the principle is I'm here to serve and support you. So therefore, trust is not an issue in that kind of relationship.
Yeah, I'm a university professor as well, and
Oh,
I
wow.
deal with digital media, visual storytelling, and visual culture. And it's interesting because obviously that's a Gen Z, right? And the goal is to teach this collaborative method. But how do we really? I mean, and the interesting thing about them is because they're digital natives, they're used
Yeah.
to. I mean, everything comes at them on their phone, right? And
Yeah.
so they're okay with back conversations, right? And in other words, when I'm sometimes, it snowed yesterday here in Denver, and I did a Zoom class, right, instead of showing up for class. And while I was teaching, I can see them all typing to each other. I mean, I'm not in on the conversation, but
Right.
they are, right? So
Yeah.
I think there has to be this understanding between, I'll call boomers and zoomers, right, the Gen Z,
Yeah.
of how do boomers not get offended by the fact that this other thing is going on, and how do we encourage that in this, I think you call it leadership 3.0, right?
Yes. Yes. So I think really, once again, it's about that connecting point and establishing that relationship right from the beginning. One of the things that I advocate for in my previous book, Leaderboard, was, you know, managers have to take responsibility for onboarding. What's happening today is that HR is we've outsourced out onboarding to the HR department, and HR is not going to create a connection with your employees for you. They're not going to make your employees trust you. HR's job is to introduce people to the principles and the processes of the company, welcome them in, and then hand them off to their manager. And the managers are not doing their real job right up front, which is to create an immediate impression and a lasting connection and trusting bond right from the initial steps. So I advocate for this kind of process called interviewing, which is not interviewing, INNER, where the manager gets an interview on that individual right from the beginning. I recommend in the first 2 weeks of them coming on board to the company, you prioritize this conversation. It's about styles. It's about trust builders and trust breakers. It's about success, past success, and what are the conditions and environments where people are successful. It's about communication, how we communicate with each other, and communications expectations. And once all that is on the table, I have a blueprint to each employee, and it's going to be different for every person you talk to. So that's why it's important. It's an individualized, sometimes 2 to 3 hour conversation where you discover what I call the keys to the kingdom of your employee. They give you, and you give back. You let them know the same thing for yourself. And from that moment on, you have a basis point for the building of your relationship. It's sort of like going on a first date with your employee. Like, it's important to have that interaction point where you can build your relationship off of that strong foundation, rather than assuming it's just going to happen over the nature of working together. No, what's going to happen is people are they're going to have big misunderstandings, miscommunications. People are going to get things wrong, and they're going to basically lose time that you could have gained by just taking a small step at the beginning of your relationship. Especially if you're a boomer, it's important for everybody in every generation, because we don't really know what's going on in each other's lives. We don't really know each other. We can assume a lot, and the point of leadership is never to assume, to know as much as possible.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. I really like hearing what you said about the manager taking control of the interview as opposed to HR just doing the interviews. Because again, spiders, they're just pulling keywords, right? To get a person to sit in the seat, and then the manager's stuck with, if they haven't had the opportunity to open that up, with somebody that may or may not work. I know in seeing some of your stuff, you have this analogy of being a Jedi versus being a boss, right? Give me some of that background.
Well, that's really more about how you get things done. So, we have this archetype today, which is unfortunately the predominant archetype, which is the boss, and everybody wants to be a boss. We celebrate the boss, the bosses in our society, and it's great to be a boss because all the benefits come towards you, all the accolades come your way. Life is easy, life is great, and then you get to delegate all the work to the underlings, people who are beneath you, struggling to achieve your seat, and you're at the top of the mountaintop. But that's not leadership. Bossing is not leadership. Bossing is not even management. Bossing is just aggrandizing the ego. That's all it is. It's about making the ego. And servant leaders don't need ego boosts, because servant leaders lead with humility, will, and empathy. And when you lead with humility, will, and empathy, you're already full from the work you're doing. So therefore, you don't require these little ego boosts that come from having perceived superiority over anybody. You understand that the work so back to Simon Sinek, the purpose is bigger than everybody in the organization, including yourself. So therefore, the purpose is the boss. We all work for the purpose. So what is my job in directing and orienting my team as it relates to our shared purpose? I'm no better than you. I have a different job than you have. And my job happens to be to get the best out of you and support you. So Jedis have the ability to more subtly influence outcomes, right? It's sort of like the scene where Obi-Wan is like, he's like, when he's telling the guy, you did not see me and you did not, he just subtly influencing the outcome he wants. He didn't pull out his lightsaber and start slicing up the place. And that's what Jedi influence is basically the art of influencing positive outcomes, and getting things done in such a suave and subtle way, nuanced way, diplomatic way, that things just happen, doors open for you without people don't have to be boss. People work for you because of your authority on the matter, because of the way you respect and lead them. And you get a lot more out of people when they believe in you as their leader, so much more than when you're telling them what to do, because when you're using your positional power to dictate to people, they're only following your instructions because of that positional power. Strip that title away from yourself, and nobody's going to listen to you. I had to work in the Middle East where I had 2 direct reports, and I had 100 people who had to work with me, and I had no direct power over anybody that I was working with. But I was very influential because of my ability to connect individually with different cultures, with different stakeholders, listen to them, understand their needs, and really work in service of their needs. And that's why when I asked for something, I tended to get it. Whereas when other people asked for things, they didn't necessarily get it. It was more of a combative relationship. So that's an example of Jedi leadership at work.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I know a lot of companies in the last, I don't know, say 5 years, I've seen it a lot where they do personality tests around bringing players in at an executive level or really any level. And there's more of a motivational factor of what you're good at or an emotional intelligence as opposed to just you've had lots of leadership positions and know how to yell at people, right? I mean, Tony Dungy is a really good example because, you look at how other football coaches, motivate people, screaming and yelling, calling people names. And Tony's the opposite, man. His voice drops when he's emotional and he pulls you in. And so one of the things I'm really curious about is because I do think when you say servant leader, sometimes that can be looked at as weakness.
Yes.
Right. So how does a servant leader and really what it's about, and you even said it, I mean, it goes back to those different, Myers-Briggs, Emergenetics, any of those strengths finders, where it used to be the dominant personality was key to leadership. Now it's almost like the influencer is key to leadership. So again, how does a servant leader guide people through crisis times like today?
Yeah. Well, once again, I think the servant leader is a beacon of once again, keeping people on track towards purpose. For example, when COVID hit, a lot of organizations lost sense of their purpose and they scrambled. Basically, they reverted back to easy things to grab onto, which were sales or profits or whatnot. They went away from purpose and ran towards, okay, we got to keep our numbers up. We got to cut people. We've got to, keep the doors open. So the purpose became keeping the doors open. And these are huge companies with large market caps and tons of cash on hand. They didn't need to panic. They just need to figure out how they're going to work towards purpose in the new environment. And so the servant leader's job is to say, listen, because I went through this as a leading my organization down in Brazil when COVID hit. And my entire speech to my team was, guys, we exist right now to take care of our customers. We need to tap into what our customers need, understand their needs, and really empathize deeply with them right now and try to figure out how we can help them. We're going to be okay, but some of our customers are going to go out of business if we don't lean in right now and demonstrate our true values. And so I think that what the servant leader does in moments of crisis is reminds everyone what the purpose is and orients the group back down to what matters the most. It keeps everyone aligned because people scatter in crisis, right? Unless you see someone with the yellow, kind of the security jacket on leading the way. Like you need someone who stands up and says, hey guys, okay, this is the way we're going to go. And I think that servant leaders occupy that space, especially in crisis moments. But in general, the servant part is about the purpose. It's not about serving others necessarily. It's about serving purpose first. And then the way you achieve purpose is by supporting everyone else to be oriented towards in the right direction, away from ego and towards outcomes is the way I would articulate that.
So Omar, who do you see doing this well these days?
There's been a few people. The one person that I really was very impressed with during the last 6-7 months was Adam Silver of the NBA. I know this may be a controversial pick, depending on where you land on the social justice angle and whatnot. But I think that the way he led through twin issues, which was the pandemic itself, which shut down his business on March 11th, and he was the first commissioner of the sports to shut down the league. So he was the first one to take the data and say, we need to stop now. And then the social justice protests that were picking up steam at the same time. And so he had two things he had to do. He had to keep his organization safe in terms of health, and he wanted to listen to his players' concerns around what was going with social justice. And Very visibly, you saw him do both. He created a bubble in Orlando that successfully completed the NBA season and crowned the champion, while at the exact same time amplifying the voices of the players on issues they thought were important, and really getting sponsors, everybody behind on board at the same time. So I thought it was a phenomenal job of servant leadership, because he ultimately, the NBA brand, I think, around the world gained luster because of the way that he managed both of these. Right now, the NBA bubble is the model for everybody coming back to work now. So he innovated the method by which we can go back to society, but also demonstrated how you can be inclusive, and amplify voices of, without the players, there are no games, right? So I think that he demonstrated that, whereas in other leagues, they tend to try to dictate to the players a bit more. And I think that if we've seen problems in those spaces. So I think that it doesn't cost you anything to listen, to try to understand, to empathize with the issues that are in concerns, and try to take action. Whether or not anything else came of it, I think that Adam Silver, when it comes down to the next contract negotiation, labor bargaining agreement, he has so much credibility showing up to the table. He's going to be able to bargain and negotiate and do business things better because of the way he led through these two crises.
Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, obviously, I was talking with Ken Blanchard, and I think he was on an interview with Robert Schuller, and I think that's who it was, and he was saying that, you really didn't come up with all those new things by yourself, did you? And he's like, what do you mean? Of course I did. He goes, well, Jesus did all that stuff before, right? And he went into this whole thing about servant leadership. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's right. So yeah, I mean, there's probably lots of times that we can look back at how different things, it's like you said, this is not a new concept.
No.
It's not a new idea, but applying it, and don't get me wrong, all we need to do is move a generation away from something, and it's going to be different.
Oh, yeah.
So if we're not teaching and leading and mentoring in that manner of servant leadership, how the heck are the Gen Z folks going to learn it, right?
Exactly. They're going to learn, ego, and they become worse. Every generation, when they learn bad things, gets worse, not better.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
A bad lesson learned turns into even more toxicity we've seen. So I think that it's really, really, that's why it's crucial right now to be teaching these lessons. And I'm trying to tap into, that's why when I wrote the Servant Leaders Manifesto, I state in the book, this book is not for CEOs. It's not for the C-suite. I did not write this book to try to convince some CEO of McDonald's to change his stripes. I wrote the book for the middle managers, for the new frontliners and managers at that level, who they can take ownership over their leadership style. And it's important that they make that adaptation now, because a sea change is happening, a tidal wave is happening with employee dissatisfaction that's going to wipe away a lot of this toxic leadership. And if you are not on the right side of this, you're going to be left in the water, not on the beachhead with firm footing.
Well, I appreciate your insight, man, your leadership and guiding people. What are some, I think, what's the last couple of things you want to share with people, leave it in their mind of having this servant leadership mindset?
So I think that the one thing that I always leave with is leading with love. And what I mean by leading with love is, first of all, you have to have enough love for yourself to love others. So you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself. So this is not selfless love. You have to take care of yourself so that you don't require ego boosts. So that means you have to take care of your health, make sure your interests are being supported, you have a team around you, your financials are taken care of. You have to take care of yourself in order for you to take care of others. So I think that's the first key point is lead with love, by taking care of yourself so you can take care of the others in your life. And then the last part is think about a broader group of stakeholders other than shareholder returns. I think that what we're seeing now is a move away from shareholder capitalism to stakeholder capitalism. Stakeholder capitalism meaning there are now 5 key stakeholders for businesses, not just one, which is the investor. Now you're talking about employees, communities, customers, the environment, and shareholders. And so the bar for leadership is being raised. 200 CEOs in the 2019 Business Roundtable Forum agreed with the new terms of corporations. So if you're a leader only focused on shareholder returns, you're not going to make it in the new with the new bar that's been raised. And so take your leadership with love and apply it to a broader set of stakeholders. Don't just think about even your employees anymore. You have to think about the community, the environment, the customer, and of course your shareholders as well, and contemplate how you're going to make positive outcomes happen for all these different stakeholders. And that is how servant leaders really make a big impact on the world.
That's great. So where can people find your books and more about you?
So I'm pretty much everywhere, but my website is www.omarlharris.com to learn more about me, to read my articles, see videos that I post regularly. Amazon.com is where you get the books, the Servant Leaders Manifesto and Leaderboard, the DNA of High Performance Teams. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter under Strengths Leader, Instagram, omarl.harris. And I look forward to mingling with and connecting with as many of you out there as possible, and sort of reach out if you need any support in any way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us here. Again, folks, you can find Omar in all the spots he told you, and just make sure that you tune in to some more of our programs around the Love Ideas Summit.